Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten here, bringing you a new build in my series Building Nancy Drew in The Sims 4. Today we are returning to building an apartment for a character whose home we don't get to see in the game, but whose kind of style I like to imagine. I like to think about where a lot of the Nancy Drew characters live, even if we never get to see it. And I was really inspired because The Sims recently released The Sims 4 Industrial Loft Kit. And I think that kind of vibe goes really, really well with autumn colors. And if you know me, if you've been around this channel for a while, you know I am obsessed with autumn. I am very basic. I love my autumn season. I love everything about it. I love pumpkins. I love the leaves changing colors. I love the crisp, cool air. I think it's just the perfect season for anyone who's really into aesthetics. The smells, the way things look, the way things feel. Anyone who's like really in tune with their senses, who's like very sensory like I am, really, I don't know, autumn just seems to be the season that does that the best. It is just amazing, and I love everything about it. And so I really wanted to build with the Industrial Loft Kit in an autumnal world, and I specifically wanted to build in Brindleton Bay. That is the Sims 4 world that came with the Sims 4 cats and dogs, and I wanted to build a loft-style apartment. I found this lot, which I kind of overlook sometimes in Brindleton Bay because it's kind of hidden, and it's called the Ragdoll Refurb, which it's supposed to be an old cat food canning company that was kind of converted into a home. However, I really thought I could do a better job than the EA one. Hopefully you guys agree. But the way that EA kind of decorated it, I don't know, it doesn't feel like a loft. It doesn't even feel like a home. It doesn't feel like a converted factory. So I really wanted to make it feel even more industrial. I wanted to use even more brick. I wanted to use even more metal accents, lots of pipe accents, lots of the decorations that came from the Industrial Loft Kit, as well as decorations and windows and stuff that came from the Moschino stuff pack, which has the best, some of the best windows in the game, and is honestly the only reason I have that pack. That's a whole thing, but I wanted to do all of that, and I wanted to turn it into an actual kind of converted warehouse apartment style building. I feel like it wasn't that before, and I wanted to make it separated into two parts, not just one home, because it's too big, and I like designing, especially when it's coming to apartments, smaller style homes. And I haven't even said who the homes are for, but on the first level, I designed the home with Dagny Silva in mind from Nancy Drew Sea of Darkness, and on the second floor, I designed the apartment with Alex Trang from Nancy Drew Sea of Darkness. She's one of the phone friends. She's actually hilarious. I feel like she's maybe sometimes forgotten or overlooked as a really clever, really fun, likable phone friend. So I thought she deserved some love. She deserved a little apartment. And I have gotten requests to do Alex's apartment and Dagny's apartment. So I figured, hey, why not do 2 in 1? Why not give them both different apartments? They don't live together. They each have their own separate spaces, and it's not like they live in the same area in the game either. So this is purely just, I wanted to do 2 apartments at once. I wanted to give you 2 separate spaces with similar styles too. And part of it was because I wanted to play around with the Industrial Loft Kit and the different color schemes that they kind of gave us. So I wanted to do kind of a more cold feeling apartment on the first floor for Dagny, while using kind of like harsher colors. And on the second floor for Alex, I wanted to do kind of a more seaside nautical kind of color scheme, so lots of dark blues, light blues, seafoam greens, that kind of thing. And I really like how both of the apartments turn out. I think they both have their own unique styles. They are designed with the same kitchen and bathroom fixtures, which I think is honestly fine, because if somebody converted this lot in order to rent out the apartments to people, then I imagine they would probably use the same fixings in the fixings. That's not the right word. That's for cooking. They would use the same stuff in both the bathrooms and the kitchen, so then they would be able to keep the style cohesive, I suppose. So one of the things that the EA build had was this interesting outside courtyard thing, and it was very closed off. It was not really decorated. It was very empty. So I decided to add in more of like the chain link fences around the top. I decided to keep the courtyard but add a lot more metal accents and a lot more pipes, so it feels like that's actually what the purpose of the courtyard used to be. If it was part of a factory, I would imagine that was why it needed to be there. And then same with adding these amazing garage doors from City Living, which I feel like I never ever get to use because they're so stylistic and have like a very specific purpose, but I got to use them, and I love the idea of it being a garage where like the car would pull up for the old canning factory and kind of dump off supplies and everything. So it just gave the courtyard more of a reason for being there rather than just trying to make the build look interesting. And the nice thing about it too was that the industrial loft windows and the Moschino windows go together really, really nicely. I know there was kind of a bit of drama about the windows and how it was totally different than the promotional image that was released, which, yeah, I totally get how that's kind of a problem, but I did enjoy using them with the Moschino windows. I think they work really nicely together, and I really enjoyed using them in the more kind of grimy swatch. I think it's really fun that they added both a grimy swatch and a clean one, so it gives you a little bit more flexibility. This is also a style that I almost never build in, but I always, like, when I get inspired to build it, I really, really love it. Like, I love putting the pipes everywhere. The exposed bricks are everything. I just left the whole thing with exposed bricks too, because I think it's perfect for an autumnal feel, because it's all red and orange and brown, and it just kind of old and dilapidated, that kind of feel that you get from autumn, which I love. Again, that was the whole reason for doing this. And plus I got to build in Brindleton Bay with all of the leaves being all pretty, so hopefully you guys get little glances of that. I will say the screenshots for this build are some of my favorites, so I highly recommend sticking around for the screenshots if you sometimes do or don't. I really love how they turned out. I'm using them as backgrounds on my computer actually, because I just love the autumn vibes, despite the fact that I'm recording this still in August. Speaking of when I am recording this and when it will release, by the time that this video comes out, I will have released a new creative project that I wanted to share with you all. I've been very open on the channel about how I have generalized anxiety disorder, how I struggle with my mental health. And a lot of my struggles with my mental health are related to my relationship with the idea of perfectionism. I have always identified as a perfectionist. I have struggled with trying to be a perfectionist my entire life. And I'm really working, especially as I'm getting older and kind of like figuring out what I really truly want in life, where I want to be, who I want to be. I'm really working on separating myself from perfectionism as a way of life, because it's really not the way to go about things. It has its moments, of course, but I think releasing myself from perfectionism has been one of the ways that I've been able to start taking more control over my mental health. And I have been like really on a journey of just learning step by step all of the lies that I've told myself in my head, all of these really perfectionistic ideals that I am so just bound to. And unlearning those is such a process, and it feels so good to me to be able to talk with friends who kind of understand that. So with that idea in mind, I have decided to start a little podcast. The podcast is called Perfectionists Anonymous. By the time that this video is out, the first episode, called Defining Perfectionism and My Story, will have been released. You can get it anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So if you just search for Perfectionists Anonymous, you should be able to find it. And the way that I really recommend being able to follow the podcast, if you too struggle kind of like with perfectionism and feeling like society is always pushing you to have to do things a certain way or be a certain way, and it just stresses you out and you too struggle with anxiety, and it's something that you're interested in, I would recommend following Perfectionists Anonymous Pod on Instagram. So then you can know where the episodes will be posted, when they will be posted, what each episode is about, little quotes from each episode each week. So I'll try to make sure to put that on the screen so that it's all spelled out in case you would like to go follow that. But I know there are people in this community that think very similarly to I do. I know talking in the streams, a lot of you just resonate, and I resonate with what you say too. So I know there's a lot of us with similar brains, and if that's something that interests you, it's meant to be kind of like hanging out with a supportive friend. It's meant to be a very relaxing, supportive environment where we can explore these ideas together and hopefully find a way to live a life with less stress and less anxiety. So if that sounds good to you, if that sounds interesting to you, check out Perfectionists Anonymous podcast at Perfectionists Anonymous Pod on Instagram. I think I might post the episodes on a separate YouTube channel as well. So that's my little plug for the day. But the apartment is now starting to really come together for Dagny. So this first floor, again, I wanted it to feel a little bit more cold, and I'm doing that by using a lot of like darker, harsher colors. The reason I wanted it to feel a little bit more cold is because we know that Dagny does not stay at her house very often. She's very often traveling for work. She's usually not home. And so what I imagined is that she hired some sort of designer to kind of just design the place for her. And the designer just kind of went full out with the industrial vibes and was very much like, okay, industrial apartment, because I feel like Dagny would really enjoy an industrial kind of style. I think it fits really nicely with her, but there's really not a lot of personal items around the apartment. There's really very few. Like there's a couple magazines, there's a couple books, but there's not a whole ton of decoration. It's mostly just the industrial style decor that comes with the apartment. So like the fireplace and the pipes and all of the furniture that's perfectly curated for this little apartment. I did enjoy imagining the kitchen too. I made sure to put in a microwave because I imagine that Dagny is definitely a quick meals kind of person. I don't think she spends a whole lot of time meal planning or cooking things out. I imagine she's like, I'm grabbing a ramen and I am going. So I wanted to make sure she had a nice little microwave, despite the fact that her kitchen is actually very fancy. The kitchens for both the apartments actually are quite nice. I would really enjoy kitchens like this. Even though industrial is not a style that I would ever live in, personally, it's one that I love to explore from time to time. Like I would totally stay in this place on like a vacation or something. I don't think I would live here forever. You know what I mean? So then for the bedroom, similar color palette. I really wanted to do a lot of reds. For some reason, I pictured Dagny really loving like a dark, rich red color. So the bedroom really goes for a red theme with dark woods, kind of like peachy reds, dark reds, just any sort of form of red. And I am not positive that that dresser functions, or that Dagny could walk around the bed to get to the other side as a sim. I'm not entirely positive because it's a very teeny little space. However, I really liked how it looked, and I just kind of wanted to keep it that way. So we're going for aesthetic on this one. This is a build that I do intend to put in my Sims 4 save file that I've been working on for eons, it feels like. I do a lot of building in The Sims just because it's one of my favorite things. It's a really great creative outlet for me. It's just a lot of fun and gives me a chance to really play around with aesthetics that my brain is really attracted to at the moment. So this one will go into Brindleton Bay in my Sims 4 save file. I have completely renovated Willow Creek and Oasis Springs, and Granite Falls, the outdoor retreat vacation world, is completely renovated. I only have 2 more lots to do in Brightchester. That's the university world that came with Discover University. I've completely renovated Magnolia Promenade. That is the shopping world that came with Get to Work. And I've made quite a bit of progress as well on Windenburg. And then the 2 worlds that had builds that were done by Game Changers, Mount Komorebi that came with the Sims 4 Snowy Escape, and Henford-on-Bagley that came with The Sims 4 Cottage Living. I'm not touching any of the builds in those games because the builds are already great. I have no problems with them as the way they are. The reason I'm renovating all of the other worlds is because, like with this build, I did have problems with them. I didn't think they were full enough or functional enough or pretty enough, and so a bunch of them I felt compelled to design in my own way. So now we are working on the second level of this renovated loft factory style building, and this level is going to be for Alex. And like I mentioned earlier, I really wanted to go with kind of a more nautical kind of color scheme for Alex. When we talk to her in the game, she tells us about how she's currently working on her degree with basically sailor feelings. So the psychology of the sea, which is such a fun idea, such a cool way to narrow down your field of study into some very specific area that would actually be really fascinating. When you think about like the isolation that sailors must feel or the danger that is inherent with that kind of career, it's very interesting. So I think Alex is really cool. One thing we also know about Alex is that she really enjoys comfy, cozy things. She talks about cuddling up with her big snuggle blanket at her HQ where she does her job running the radio and kind of communicating with sailors and people at the lighthouse and stuff like that. So I really loved that, and I really wanted to go full out with some of the like cozy vibes. And industrial style is not one that screams cozy vibes. It's very much like harsh and dark and hard. So I tried to soften it up with a lot of the colors, so the light blues, the dark blues, the pastel greens, and then just cozy elements like that cute little squirrel hot cocoa holder and the cute little blue teapot, the cozy little candle and hot cocoa on the wall. I put blankets and pillows everywhere. I put really colorful little things everywhere. I put stuffed animals on her bed, cute little cozy stuffed animals on her bed, backpacks because she's still studying as a student. I feel like this apartment would be extremely expensive for a student to afford, but you know. And I gave her the nifty knitting desk and a little knitting bag because when she said that she cuddled up with her big snuggle blanket, I immediately imagined that she knitted the big snuggle blanket all by herself. So knitting Sims 4 Alex is definitely a thing. It's canon now. She knits her own blankets. She knits her own mittens so that she can stay warm in Iceland. Those kinds of things I thought were really cute and really added a nice little kind of homey style to the apartment. It's that Swedish style of really cozy, relaxed decorating that I can never pronounce. I think it's spelled Hygge. Hygge, something like that. That kind of style is really what I was trying to meld in with the industrial style, and I really enjoy how it turned out. I really had a lot of fun building these apartments. They were just very inspiring. It was exactly the kind of mood that I needed right now, and that's when it's easiest to build. That's when it's so exciting to build. I just love that. For those of you that also build in The Sims 4, I'd be super curious to hear in the comments, like, what kind of styles you feel inspired to build a lot. What kinds of things are you finding yourself often building in The Sims? I know I often will build, like, suburban houses and cottages, and then every once in a while, I'm just, like, I need to build something with ivy. I need to build a big brick building that has a lot of ivy on it and a lot of just, like, old kind of styling to it. And that's kind of the mood I was in with this. Again, because I just really want autumn. Is anyone else desperately pining for autumn? I know we've talked about this on the streams before, but especially since it's so close to September now, I'm just kind of like, okay, goodbye hot, humid weather. Please give me a crisp, chilly day with like wind and rain. Give it to me now. I'm using a lot of the items from the Industrial Loft Kit as well, but I'm also using a lot of, nifty knitting and tiny living and a lot of the cozy elements. I actually do really like a lot of the furniture that came with the Industrial Loft Kit. I don't think that I'll use it a ton. Like, I won't use it any more than any of the other furniture that I have. It's not something I will find myself using exclusively all the time kind of thing. There are some items in The Sims that I literally use all the time, and I would have a really hard time going without, but the Industrial Loft Kit adds some nice new options. I just don't think it's necessary. Unless you do find yourself building industrial style builds all the time, then you might go for it. You could get some good use out of the stuff, but none of it feels like anything that you need. Whereas like the the country kitchen kit, even with cottage living, I still kind of feel like I need that kit because of all of the kitchen clutter that it has that we don't have anywhere else. Like the jars and the baking stoneware, the casserole dish, the little tins that look like they're holding wheat or sugar or something. We don't have anything like that in the game, and it's perfect kitchen clutter. So I would go for that build kit over this one. Personally, just because a lot of the decorative items we already have different versions of, it's not the same. I've seen a lot of people say that they're exactly the same as other kits, so you definitely don't need it. I disagree. I don't think the items are exactly the same as things that we have in other kits or other packs. I think they are different enough, and I think they're really pretty and they're rendered really, really well. It's just if you're going to use it a lot kind of thing, since it is $5. Something to think about, something to mull over. But we are coming up on the screenshots here very soon, and like I mentioned, they're some of my favorite screenshots that I've ever gotten to take, so I highly recommend sticking around for the screenshots if you enjoy pretty pictures and vibes. I'm going to go ahead and plug that and toot my own horn and say that they ended up looking really nice. But as always, thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. Please feel free to check out Perfectionists Anonymous Pod on Instagram and the podcast itself if you are curious about that. And otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more Nancy Drew and Sims 4 content. Thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. I will see you soon.